It's Tuesday, innit? Oh god, if I could find any other ways to further push away my friends from the UK after today's mayhem, if you caught our latest installment of Cat Cooks, I can't even look y'all in the eye right now. I literally cannot even look at you guys right now. The comment section has had me freaking howling today. If you have no idea what I'm talking about. Well, I can only do so much. Everybody else is carrying it in the comments. You guys showed up and showed out. I'm so sorry to the UK for that video. Who was it? CB commented something a few minutes back saying, I don't think Kat's gonna get many UK viewers tonight because it's 12:50 a.m. for them. I don't think I'm gonna get many UK viewers tonight because they're about to banish me from their country for the crimes I committed in my kitchen. But it's good to see you guys. I'm gonna address all the comments, so I know I've been reading them, I just haven't responded to all of them, but you guys are cracking me the frick up. No, I did not make Tom try it, Lord Insidious, and he would have absolutely refused if I had made you try my vegetarian black pudding. But alas, we're here.
Yeah, I was not around, so I did not try it.
Yes, I think Josh commented that on the video as well. Like, well, I'm glad you didn't try to kill Tom this time. Because it's been a while since we've done Cat Cooks, so what a crazy wild way to revive that series on the channel with something probably the most cursed, the most chaotic, the most revolting. But yes, anyways, it has been a hot minute, and the last time, hot minute. That was the very first one we ever did. What was it, the portion bread or the blue milk? I forget. I think it was
I forget.
Portion bread first, then blue milk. And the blue milk I did unintentionally. Tom's esophagus was burnt and maybe still is to this day, and that was 3 years ago. So
I think it is.
I am just glad that you guys enjoyed that video. So anyways, what's up, friends? As you can see, we have our co-pilot back. Welcome, welcome. What do you have to say for yourself for missing last week?
There's no excuse. There's no excuses other than it's been a crazy couple of weeks. Crazy couple of weeks. So
it has
a lot of uncertainty in our lives right now. Been a crazy couple of weeks.
They know, they've been in the paint streams.
But there's no excuses. So what do you mean they know?
Well, I've just been divulging how crazy and chaotic life is.
Oh.
But there is other stuff occurring BTS behind the scenes. That who knows, maybe we'll make a life announcement soon. We're not having a kid, just get that out of your head. That's not happening yet. I know that sounds ominous, and we've gotten questions like that a lot. No, it is not that. It is not pertaining to that. Don't worry, y'all.
Having triplets. Triplets.
No. Yeah, loophole. We're not having a kid, we're having No.
Gen Z Octomom.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Right,
anyway, we're back with our co-pilot this week. But if you were here last week, thank you. Shout out, Chopper. You're going to make me freaking crack up. I'm so glad somebody enjoyed that in my freaking cooking video. And let me know, y'all. Maybe I'll do more of those. I know it's the most random thing ever, but those of you who showed up are enjoying it, and I had so much fun making it and editing it. So, alas, are you guys finally adopting me? Yes, to atone for my sins against the United Kingdom that I committed. I will never cook vegetarian blood pudding for you, don't worry.
There we go.
English breakfast rocks. Gotta make runny eggs and potatoes. Cherry tomatoes are better than the big ones. Yeah, I kind of didn't really do anything pertaining to what an actual English breakfast should be. But anyway, so yes, forgive Tom's absence from last week, but we persevered and we had a little Q&A. And during that, I think we opened up a really interesting discussion that I wanted to kind of dive in more to, because I think you have a very different opinion than I do. We delved into live action versus animation. Some of you guys were posing really good questions. You know, what would you like to see if there is an animated IP that you would like to see that has not yet been made live action, or vice versa? Is there something that's live action that you think would be better suited in animation? I talked about, you know, there's certain characters in Star Wars that I don't ever want to see come to live action, be born in real life. Asajj Ventress primarily. I, you know, made a pretty spicy take, a hot take that I think she should just remain in the animated realm. And so we scratched the surface, and I was like, this would be interesting to talk more about and to hear from you guys, hence the title. Which do you think's better, live action versus animation? I think it was Mark. Hello, Mark. Welcome back. Welcome back. We've only just begun, don't worry. It was actually your comment earlier that I saw in the pregame chat mentioning that live action is always better suited for dramatic material and whatnot. But I admittedly had a hard time last week. I learned something about myself because somebody asked, I forget who it was, shout out if it was you. Somebody asked if there is, a current animated IP that I would like to see in the pipeline converted to live action, and I couldn't think of anything because my initial instinct was it would just ruin it. I don't know what it is. And I even said something like I can think of the reverse. There's so much Star Wars material that's live action that I would love to see animated. I think my prime example was Ahsoka season 2 or Ahsoka season 1. Especially chiefly because it's a continuation following Rebels. You know, has so many of those legacy characters and whatnot. And in my personal opinion, when it comes to sci-fi in particular and Star Wars, or you know, something like Avatar with the elements, the bending, things translate better in animation sometimes with combat or fantastical elements that you just cannot re-achieve in the live action realm. But I know that Tom is a big... See, Mark is saying it. I really think live action is always better. Who wins, Ahsoka or Aang? Depends on their ages, it depends on their stages.
Did you say Ong?
I almost just said Ong as a joke. I never should have watched that M. Night Shyamalan rendition.
Avatar Ong.
Chop says, here's my take that I'll always stand by. If it was animation first, it will never be better. Yes, there's something to be said about that too in live action. However, if it was in live action first, it's usually also great as animation. Chop. I like that take. Patrick Kelly says, really depends on the story. Stuff like Avatar does better in drawing, and Star Wars should be in live action. Oh, interesting. Live action shows more personality. The difference is usually in the writing. That is true, Mark. However, I don't know. This is on the front burners of my brain. I always just go back to Avatar: The Last Airbender because normally I would be inclined to agree with that, but that is a kid's show that still had such depth. They were rocking just like for the Nickelodeon audience, and it to this day is still one of the most beautifully written and told stories, in my opinion, and fulfilled series. Crazy, crazy statement. But I will always hold Avatar: The Last Airbender over...
Game of Thrones?
Yeah! Are you gonna agree with me?
Yes.
Just because they stuck the landing?
Yes.
Before
absolutely.
I let Tom take the wheel. John Blake, thank you so much. If they made an Invincible live action series, who would play Omni-Man? Also, you'd make a good Adam Eve cat? Oh, thank you. I have to actually watch. Invincible's been on my list. You guys have been requesting that one for a while, my ever-growing list, but I've heard really good things about that. And I'm not too late to the game, right? It only has 2 seasons that have come to fruition so far. So I should get around to that because I've heard really good things. And now I gotta check out Adam Eve. I like that character name. I know nothing about the show, but now I gotta check her out for cosplay inspiration. But take it away. I think there have been times where you are more open-minded to a live-action installment of something than I am.
Yes, and I think Chopper's comment is a good way to characterize it. But I think that there is just, if you're going to compare, because the context of this conversation is always in comparison. My brain is fried. Comparing, not like fried on like marijuana.
Not that way,
like
yeah.
fried, like
disclaimer.
Spent. The context of this conversation always turns into comparing. Star Wars, for example, is usually how the context that we talk about it, where you've got characters and stories that blend and are interplaying between live action and animation. When you're looking at it from the lens of comparison between these things that exist in both mediums already, then it's generally always going to have a negative light of like, oh, this would be better in live action, or this would be better animated, back and forth, yada yada. I think that I'm with Mark, I think it was Mark, where in general, live action is my medium of choice. The shirt that I'm wearing is the greatest example of that, where this piece of Star Wars property, Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, is fantastical and sci-fi and heavy sci-fi choreography and ridiculous CG in almost every single scene. And it is the definition of everybody involved in that production going all out, giving everything they have to give, at the time, the last piece of Star Wars media ever. And it shows. And it shows. And if that was animation, sure, it would still be good, but it's so good because it makes you're sitting there watching it and you're like, wow, everything looks so real, but it's all so fantastical and so not anything we would see in real life, but we're looking at the screen and it looks real. And I think that now, 20 years later, so much of live action material is in streaming services and in television shows, and you have hundreds of millions of dollars that traditionally has been spent on 2.5 hours of content in the big screen theatrical releases spread out over 12, 10, 8, 15 hours of content. And so,
if we're lucky.
So yes. So
anymore, it's dwindled.
Exactly. So the modern day live action properties, and particularly in Star Wars, but also elsewhere, has the same budget of blockbuster theatrical releases from the early 2000s, but it's spread out over way more screen time, which means that the dollars spent per second on the screen is way, way less, which means that the average visual effects and score and story packed into that amount of time is way less with the serialized television show. So I think today we think of live action, certainly you and I, more so in, okay, Star Wars Disney Plus television shows. But if you think about the animation shows of today, Rebels, Clone Wars finale, the Tales series, those are stories where we're not thinking about visuals and how it looks and acting performances and things like that, because all of that is removed with the animation medium. So if you have a great story today in animation and you have a great story and you try and tell it in live action, you get way more bang for your buck in telling it in an animated realm, and then it removes all of the discussion about visual effects and cinematography and choreography and all these things they don't come into play from a fan's perspective or from a professional critic's perspective or anything like that, because it's animation. So you literally control everything. So you get way more bang for your buck in animation. So therefore, if you're a creative and you have a budget and I have this really awesome story, where can I maximize the impact of the story and how it's told with the limited budget that I have, you're going to pick animation because there's way less risk. So that's where I think we are today, and that's why I think a lot of people do prefer animation, because they're forgetting how a massive budget on the big screen can change lives and change the world.
Well, they're just mishandling those massive budgets anymore.
We've got some few highlights we've got some few highlights.
Okay, you have extremes on both ends.
Of monster, life-changing, blockbuster. You sit in the theater for 2.5 hours and you are just completely blown away. From visuals and score and story and acting, the drama. We so much has been turned into serialized TV format because you can get more hours out of a budget. But they're the true live action experience of theatrical, cinematic, blow your mind movie theater experiments.
Experiments?
Experience is what I think of when it comes to live action. So Star Wars, we have not had a movie since 2019 and The Rise of Skywalker, so it's been 6 years. So Star Wars, we don't have any recent data points because all the live action since then has been through the Disney Plus serialized television shows. But outside of Star Wars, I think of the Batman, and I just rewatched Dark Knight recently, and I came out of watching Dark Knight and I was like, man,
that's a movie.
Yeah, Dark Knight is a movie, but I was also like, Batman with Pattinson is also a movie. Like, that movie is so good. And I watching The Dark Knight, I was like, wow, I haven't seen The Dark Knight in a while, but watching that, I was like, man, this is a piece of cinema masterpiece. But then I was thinking after I watched it, I was like, I want to rewatch Batman right now because Batman is like on par with this, if not beyond The Dark Knight. Like, I think the Batman
that's bold.
It is bold, but like that's a standout film for me. Dune 2 is one where it's like, okay, you go and you sit in the theater and that's just a complete otherworldly, every bang for their buck was spent well on everything. Avatar Way of Water is another one where you're sitting in the theater and you're like, okay, everything looks real, but literally nothing in that movie is real. Nothing.
Yeah.
Literally nothing.
It might as well be animation.
Because
it is.
There's barely any actual humans. The
That's
whole
true.
thing. It's 3 hours of make-believe and fake, but it looks real. So that's another great example. I think Oppenheimer is one that comes to mind. It's not as fantastical, but it's one that it's less about the visual effects, but the story and the score and the way that it's told is a very movie theater type experience. Yeah, those are some of the, I mean, I was already talking about Revenge of the Sith. We watched that twice in theaters in the last couple of months. And then Interstellar re-released. We watched that in the theaters. What was that, last fall? And yeah. I mean, Interstellar is another one where it's just, I think I've listed off 3 Christopher Nolan movies. So maybe it's just Christopher Nolan is what we're really talking about here. Christopher Nolan and James Cameron and Denis Villeneuve or whatever his name is. It was close, right? Isn't it Denis Villa what?
Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve. Maybe it's just those 3 guys. Well, Matt Reeves in the Batman. So throw Matt Reeves in there. I'm very looking forward to Batman too. So those movies are the ones that come to mind. And granted, some of them came out a while ago, but that we've seen in the theater recently where it's like, that is completely maximizing the live action medium to its fullest. So the extreme positives that those films are, in my mind, you could never reach that sensory overload peak in animation. You can have incredible stories. You can tell them incredibly well, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, like the Clone Wars season finale, which is some of the greatest Star Wars ever made, the Clone Wars season 7 finale. However, if those stories were told in live action and it was the same budget to second of screen time ratio, then I think you can have the complete, you could achieve a new height of epicness of that story. Is it way riskier? Yes, because it's going to cost way more, and it's going to be, you really have to nail it. But the potential is much higher.
Well, it's quite a take/response from somebody whose brain is allegedly not firing on all cylinders. And unfortunately, poor Sean sent his member super chat 5 minutes ago, before Tom embarked on all that.
Sorry,
Sean,
sir.
Thank you for waiting patiently. If you can even still remember what you sent, 20 months a member on the edge of 5 years. Jesus, in July. Thank you, Kat and Tom. I will always be eternally grateful for you and this community. We feel the same way about you, Sean. Any Persephone updates? Let me get back to you on that. I think I'm also going to hold on to any of the artwork that I currently have until I send my application for grad school. That way, if it's like, oh, I need a different picture of this or something like that, I have it at my disposal. But then after that, they're for the taking. So let me get back to you on that. Also, with all of the crazy shenanigans that we alluded to in the beginning of the stream going on in our lives at the moment, there's been a lot today. So thank you for your continued patience, Sean. I will let you know when we are locked and loaded and ready to go. Saw a lot of good takes during all of that.
I didn't read the chat for a single second. I was in the zone, so
yes,
I don't know. I don't have a gauge of what people were thinking.
That shirt is awesome, by the way, isn't it? It's his best shirt.
Thank you. This shirt is incredible. I've got the man himself.
Yeah, to go with it.
In this shirt. That's from Celebration in Anaheim. My brother and I, and the Senate himself.
And that is where you got this shirt, correct?
I think I got this online prior to that celebration.
Oh,
I think.
Do you happen to remember? I'm sure you could potentially find it on Amazon.
I think that's what I did. I don't know that I got this one at Celebration. I think this
because it does seem like something that would be like a Celebration exclusive.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. I love the shirt.
It is sick.
It's got these two, and then Grievous is down there too.
I mean, you've literally worn that shirt in public, and people have stopped you and said that, like on the street.
Yeah, it's treason.
Anyways, yes, your point. You opened up another good segue into something I didn't consider about the facets of, you mentioned 20 years later now, live action film today, and anymore, I can't help but think every time I watch a classic film that's from like the early 2000s, heck, even the 90s at this rate, older films, okay, you listed off like the exceptions at the top of the game, like are winning Best Picture of the Year for a reason, or receiving nominations for it. Like,
yeah, because
you listed off the best of the best.
Because that's like the best of the best.
That is.
And on my point,
but not everything is at that level.
You could not hit that experience all around in animation.
That's fair. However, a lot of live action films can't even hit that experience either. That bar is so freaking high in so many other films. I feel like anymore the trend is that you see a film's budget and then you see the return, the lack thereof rather, in the box office turnout. Anymore, I feel like all these production studios are just in the hole because they're shelling out millions of dollars for things that don't look like it's worth. This film was $325 million and it got $75 million at the box office. Yeah, because it looks like garbage. It looks like garbanzo beans. It looks like garbage.
And they're not intriguing stories.
And so that's, to me...
And I mean, the real thing that you're alluding to here is the Disney live action remake.
Before you go on another tangent, let me address Matt's too. We don't want to have Matt waiting for 10 minutes as well. Thank you so very much, Matt. You have been so continuously generous with the super chats. It's much appreciated. When it comes to animation, Ralph Bakshi always comes to mind. American Pop, Lord of the Rings, Fritz the Cat, etc. In the end, though, it all boils down to the story. A huge budget either way is enough. Yes, Matt, and that's exactly what I'm saying. You have endless multi-million-dollar crazy budgets breaking records
with garbage stories
and visuals that aren't making up for it. That's why I'm, especially when it comes to, and perhaps I think of this through the lens of, maybe this is present on my mind in the context of, more often than not, well, we're seeing, at least in the Star Wars fandom, the pipeline of animated characters being introduced to live action. not really the other way around, except for dabbling in concepts of new characters in Star Wars Visions, which I think has been able to achieve some incredibly beautiful imagery. And you guys, a lot of you guys have mentioned this. Animation is just slept on because it's perceived to be a children's medium. And that's why I don't know if it will ever be able to fully just flourish. Because yes, you have a point that I've yet to experience an animated experience theatrically that matches anything like that. IMAX, Interstellar, on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
But more often than not,
I mean,
we're not
Interstellar is a, if you ask me, the very, very
that is a league
0.0000001% at the top of the pyramid.
What's up, Daddy Josh?
Cinematic experiences. So Interstellar for me is essentially unbeatable. But you're right. There are very few animated things that have ever elicited that type of emotion to some of those projects that I was talking about. But Clone Wars Season 7 finale, those last 4 episodes, those are emotionally packed with a punch. And Avatar, the ending of that show, and even episodes throughout that show, it gets very emotional, and it gets very heavy themed, and credit to them, because like you said, it was a show for 8-year-olds on Nickelodeon, and it's incredible.
Can I say something bold? And I never really realized this up until Andor. Dare I say, I think the most I've ever been struck and damaged emotionally to the point of crying in fetal position, because I wasn't reacting to those, y'all. I was laying in bed crying. That was before my reaction days, when I could really get it out of my system and cry like a baby, curled up on my bed. Up until Andor, Season 2 specifically, I think the Clone Wars series finale, in spite of being animation, is the most wrecked and emotionally moved I've ever been from Star Wars. None of the films have me sobbing. No, because I wasn't crying that much as a kid. I wasn't as emotionally. I didn't even know that Vader was Vader. Yeah, I've told this story countless times. My older brother had to frickin' grab me by the shoulders as I'm watching Anakin burn to a crisp, screaming, "Why is this happening? Where's this Darth Vader? What's going on?" My 9-year-old brain couldn't conceive till my brother had to frickin' ruin and crush my dreams and say, "That is Darth Vader! He is Darth Vader!" And so I didn't realize it until it was all too late. So, like, yes, if I were to... You see a lot of adult reactors now watching Revenge of the Sith for the first time, and they are emotionally damaged and wrecked and ruined, and it's harrowing.
That's true. You had plenty of exposure before you could understand the emotional weight. Yeah, up
until Andor, animated Star Wars, that was the most I've cried from Star Wars. And I'm not saying you have to cry or be emotionally damaged like that to have what you're saying, the equivalent of this like grand cinematic impactful experience. But that for me is a big marker of, when we went to go see Interstellar again, it sounded like a funeral in there. And there was not a dry eye or somebody who wasn't sniffling, runny nose, everybody walking out as if we just left a funeral. Yep. So, it does, things do hit differently, but animation has still been capable of moving me that way.
Oh yeah. And like whoever said, ultimately, Matt in the super chat, ultimately it does come down to story. But you can tell an incredible story in whatever medium you want, and even video games. We're not even, video games isn't even part of this discussion, but the Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, 2 incredible Star Wars stories in the video game medium that are incredible, and they're an emotional roller coaster. And I'll give The Last of Us. The Last of Us is an absolutely incredible story told in video game format, now in television format. But if you watched our kind of conversation after Last of Us, is that, we think that the way that the story is told in the video game medium hits home way harder than it has in the television show. But then we're getting to that comparison argument that we were talking about in the beginning So it is a little different.
Well, and that's inherently different because you have an emotional connection personally playing first person and then being translated to then you're just a viewer in the television experience.
You die to a bloater 150 times in the basement.
Yeah, you have investment. You clock hours emotionally. I saw somebody mention, I think it was Dr. Professor, mentioned Iron Giant. Everyone's sounding off on Wild Robot. Like, yeah, there are examples. I think they're more scattered, far and few between. But yeah, holy shnikes, Iron Giant. Talk about, if I were to rewatch that today, I don't know if I can. And if I rewatched that now as an adult, I might die. But Mark was making a good point that, yes, a film like 12 Angry Men, if you're going for like hard-hitting drama, that's Oscar bait, you know. Great. That's not to diminish 12 Angry Men, one of the greatest films of obviously all time. Literally set the standard and precedent. So take that with a grain of salt. You never had to watch that in school? Mm-hmm. It is like one of the most iconic plays and then film adaptations like of all time. You'll have to watch it. Huh. You would probably find it boring. It's essentially just... I'll tell you later. I don't know if you would actually like it.
Okay.
But
yeah, I don't think I've ever heard it.
But yes, in the context of us nerds, hence invoking the title, Dork Discourse.
Dork Discourse. Oh.
Yes. Coco is another good one, Sean. I think I approached this from you see more live action adaptations of animated material that's in the fantastical realm. The Disney remakes, Disney Princess remakes, that's all very fantastical. It's now expanding to, we even had, The Lion King, Lilo and Stitch, How to Train Your Dragon, shout out Chop. I saw you, Chop, asking me to watch the animated ones. I have watched them. I did with a young family member of mine, and that's gonna be my litmus test. I want to take her to go see the live action one to see if it to see how a kid views that, because I think so many, again, to go back to the live action is, for adults. That's the whole crux, perhaps, of why Disney opened Pandora's box and started making their remakes, because it's to appeal to the adult audience. But how does a kid like that, Like, there's something... Their originals are classical for a reason. Some of those films are approaching 100 years old, and, if we ever had triplets, I'd show our triplets. Our hypothetical triplets.
Our triplets are getting 3 screens glued to their face of Revenge of the Sith.
One's gonna have Phantom Menace, one's gonna have Attack of the Clones, one's got Revenge of the Sith. So I think in the context of, or again, something like Avatar The Last Airbender, I'm trying to think of other examples. Throw out other examples, y'all. I think it's going to become more common, but... And who knows, maybe I just have yet to see something that will strike me as, wow, you know what, that was really well done. Because I've had an aversion to live action remakes, and so I don't really watch them. I think How to Train Your Dragon is going to be like one of my first ones, other than watching the Star Wars live action shows that draw in animated characters.
Yeah, but that's different because it's not the same story. Well, to be fair, the live action remakes are not the same story, and that's why they get a lot of flack. Why Disney has gotten a lot of flack, because they create like crucial story points, and it's like, okay, they're doing it in a way that they're trying to just bring the stories kind of back for a newer generation, but then the audience who grew up with them and loves them are like, well, why'd you change this? Why'd you change that? And it's like, they are, from my perspective, totally shooting themselves in both feet at the same time with like a 12 gauge double barrel shotguns, just blasting their own feet off by doing that. So I don't really understand that. But
Charlie, yes. Yeah. So help me if Homeward Bound gets remade. Oh no, please no. They couldn't. No, that's where Charlie gets mad. No, that was. But here's the thing. Like, I would sooner watch Homeward Bound, which is live action, pets who can talk. Do you know Homeward Bound? Please tell me.
No. I don't think so.
We have a lot of catching up, culturing to do. Okay. Anyway, Homeward Bound was made frickin' when? Somebody fact check me? Somebody call in the date? It's about like the 3 pets that get lost and go on this adventure to return to their families. It's like 2 dogs, a cat, One of them's a golden retriever. He's like the leader of the alpha. Each kid had their own pet. I thought that was so cool growing up. Like, oh my god, the girl has the cat, the boy has the dog.
I don't think so.
Anyways, somebody fact check me on when Homeward Bound, yeah, like early 90s, Ty Sabin, that came out then. And they didn't have, I haven't watched it in forever. Did they have the pets puppeteered, like moving their mouths? 1993. Shout out Stanley's. Thank you. I can't remember it because it has been freaking a hot minute, but I would sooner watch that, which is a live action pet movie with real pets, real animals. I'd sooner watch that than the live action Disney live action. Jesus, how many freaking times can I say live action? Lion King is what I'm trying to say. Remake. Because to me, again, it all goes back to like what you're saying. It's like visually, I'm just going to be focusing and fixating on, you can tell this is a green screen. You can tell this isn't real. The color grading, like, there are things that are just so much more magical in the animated realm. So for all of these fantastical things like Avatar, stuff that is very sci-fi heavy, that does have all of these crazy mystical elements that just, in my opinion, translate better visually in animated form, my brain will never not be able to spot the hindrances or the you know, if there's choreography and fight scenes that just, oh, this would be so much more free-flowing, so much smoother if it was in animation.
Because the budget per screen time was significantly lower. If you want to talk about free-flowing, the
okay,
choreography and the stunts and the artistry that the actors of the prequel trilogy went through to get their choreography to be that free-flowing and that intense and that natural looking took levels of training that I'm sure they couldn't even think of possibly putting into the budget for all these live action shows. So if you gave, you know, Rosario Dawson or Shin's actress or R.I.P. Ray Stevenson or Natasha, right? Is Sabine?
Yes.
Natasha Bordizzo?
Yes.
Yeah. Natasha, if you gave all of them months and months and months and months and months and months and months or a year, or however long of intense, physical, demanding lightsaber training, of course, if you put the time and the budget and the money and the backing and the support and the energy into getting that product, you're going to get it. But if you have $200 million to spend on 8 hours of screen time, putting that together, or $200 million to spend on 2 hours, the money is going to go into so many other areas and it's going to be way less concentrated. So everything, in my mind, naturally takes a step down from what it would be if you told a story in a condensed time frame. And yeah,
That's
you get
fair.
more. You get, I mean, in Ahsoka, like every single episode almost, there's some type of lightsaber fight, right? But if you take the key ones, like her and Balin, on the
which I still
the
thought
whale
cooked.
planet,
I still thought
And
her
then
and
you take
Balin had great fight chemistry.
yeah, and then you take the final one at the end, and like it's just those two, and it's like all in on that cinematically. Then it's gonna be a different result. It'll be less diluted.
I'm with Ty though. I really think the animated lightsaber duels are better. And shout out to who said it, Patrick Kelly. Say it louder for the studios in the back. Why can't they come up with original ideas? You know what? I think the wave is coming. I think they can finally feel the backlash publicly to the outcries of like, no, please. Everything nowadays is just recycled, churning out. I don't want to say sloppy seconds, like just recycling old stuff. And the problem is, you guys were remarking that there's that new animated film Elio that I've seen only billboards for. I have not seen a single trailer, a single promotional poster for it, just billboards driving around LA. And that's by the grace of living in Los Angeles, which is the hub of film and television. So there's always billboards for everything. That's honestly the only way we ever learned about the War of the Worlds science fiction series, through billboards. So like, that's by virtue, Otherwise, if that's the main way I honestly find out about some things, if they lack the marketing budget, I guess. Like, I just see it on a billboard in LA. So other than that, I've not seen anything for that movie. So it's like the new films aren't getting as much. I shouldn't say that. Like, there's been a handful. You guys mentioned Coco, and Kanto is a freaking amazing one.
Sinners?
Well, that's just new IP in general. Like, yeah, new idea, which we still haven't seen, which is criminal. There are examples of new films that are coming on the scene. I just need to see more promotion for it. Math, two of you, thank you so much again. Much appreciated. It seems that the DCU has translated better to animation than live action for the most part. What would be the strong points as to why? I am unfortunately not the person to ask, nor is Tom, because I've mentioned to y'all I'm a DC Universe illiterate. But I can say... What are you going to say?
Well, I was going to say the recent DC films have been, criticized for what the end product was in the live action format. So I think that for some of the reasons, like, okay, if you have a budget, and what's the least risky path to get your story across to the audience, and eliminating the risks of negative perception, it's to go to the animated route. And if you don't have executive producers from the top down leading a clear, concise vision of managing budget and talent to get the best people in the room to put the best live action project together, you can use that same money in a way more concentrated, less risky effort and going into the in the animation route. So I think you've got there's a lot more variables out of your direct control if you're a director producer of an animated project versus a live action project. But if you can get people committed to buy in to a collective vision, and you get people that are passionate about it, and they're given the financial backing from whatever studio it is to do their job and do the best they can and not rush the schedule, then you can get that project. But if it's all about schedule, and getting things out the door and getting things done, you could have the greatest story on the world, but if you don't meet those schedule milestones in live action, there's way more of a price to pay from the audience perspective versus an animation, because it's way easier to keep that and to hold that.
Well, that's like what Chop was saying earlier, which welcome back, Chop. And before I totally forget, y'all, quick plug for tomorrow's stream. I scheduled it earlier this week. You might have seen it. I just didn't announce it in a community post yet, but we'll do so tomorrow and remind y'all that at 1 p.m. here tomorrow, we will be live again. 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Yes, that's math.
Good math.
We will be live tomorrow, and Chop has so graciously, you guys know I shared their Andor edit in my community posts, and shout out, y'all showed up and showed out with the support. That was amazing, and it's so well deserved, because did I lie, y'all? That edit is freaking off the charts, and I have since watched it and like cried 50,000 times. But Chop has very graciously allowed us to host the premiering live stream of their newest edit coming out tomorrow here on the channel. So stay tuned and stick around for that tomorrow. 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Chop will be in attendance. I am so freaking excited. And heads up, disclaimer, it's already been demonetized out of the gate because I believe Chop alluded there is copyrighted music, which is fine. I said, I don't freaking care. We're going to blast it. We're going to play that loud and clear. So come one, come all, join us. Thank you all so much for the love for the Andor edit. You deserve it, Chop. That edit's so freaking good. And I'm so excited for tomorrow. So before I forget, there's that reminder. But anyway, yes, as Chop was saying earlier, yes, you have to deal with reshoot potential in live action. There's so many more limitations, and if you go back and you're like, ah, shoot, we didn't get this scene, but then how much money does it cost to bring all the cast back, get the set back, and like, there's so much more on the production side of it, whereas, animation, I think it's so much easier to just hone, okay, yes, you have to still deal with calling in actors and whatnot. But say you only need a few lines, voiceover redone, ADR. You can bring in. You don't necessarily need to bring the whole cast back. XYZ. There's so many. I think it just eliminates so many of the other hiccups with live action development that you can then hone the final product. And so in that way, yes, saving money. And I feel like, to go back to why you guys were concurring that the DCU animated universe is cooking right now, I need to just get educated on the entire DC universe anyway, so perhaps we will get started with Superman as well. That's coming out. Batman. We'll start there. We'll start with what we've already seen. Yes. I will say, I only read like a few comic books as a kid, so I don't approach like Marvel and DC with this archive of comic book knowledge and appreciation in my arsenal, but the ones that I did read, I remember have stuck with me, and there's something about the artistic experience of that. And honestly, I don't know why I don't read comics more often. I'm trying to get more into like graphic novels, stuff like that, but I think that lends itself so much better to animation, and perhaps that's why, if you're just fans inherently of that type of content, if that's nostalgic for you, or even not even nostalgic, but just how you enjoy, to ingest those stories, the art style, something graphic about it, the blocking, in a graphic novel or a comic book, there's something about the layouts there, the movement, the way the story unfolds, the just how dynamic the choreography is. And I think it's just much more applicable it's much more transferable into animation. That would be my guess. But also, yes, to your point, the DC universe, I feel like, has just been very divided, the fan base as of late. So perhaps that's nice. I'm happy to hear that. And I feel like also there is just so much, perhaps that also feeds into a larger, there's oversaturation of, can't even keep track of Marvel, DC, and even still, speaking of the topic of things getting remade, not to like knock the new Superman and Fantastic Four, but it's like, okay, kind of just rehashing new things.
There's been plenty of Superman movies. There's been plenty of Fantastic Four movies.
Batman, don't get me started. Batman,
like I think the greater appeal is like, well, we have Batman movies that we already love. We have Superman movies that we already love. We've got all these movies with these same characters that we already love. I think it's in the same kind of flavor of, Disney's taking a lot of heat for taking old stories and old characters and just making new movies about the same things. I think the same with the superhero movies. It's like, okay, how many Spider-Man movies are there? How many Batman, Superman movies? Like, it's taking the same characters that people love, and people are still going to go see them, but it's stories that we've already been told, and people are already familiar with. So I think that the other type of movies with new IP and new stories that we haven't seen before, I think if you were to go look at the just purely look at the box office performance of various cinematic releases, the new stuff is what's gonna do better. And if you produce a movie with an original story, original characters, and it's done incredibly well, then that's where the Oscar nominations and Best Picture and box office records and making ridiculous returns on the budget of the film, like that's where that's going to come into play. Because I think if you've got a new story, even if it's with characters that you might be familiar with, but it's a totally new story, it's not a remake, it's not advertised as a sequel or remake or anything like that, and it's an original, incredibly powerful story with the visuals and score and production quality to back it up, that's where you're going to see it. Like Sinners, we just talked about, totally unique story. They went in, I mean, granted, it's got an all-star cast, so shout out to the cast. But that movie totally blew up. Right?
No, I think the wave is here of they're starting to catch on that audiences are rejecting the same formulaic shiz, the same just big blockbusters that are, oh, this budget was $500 million. Like, that's no longer alluring to us. If anything, that can almost be a turnoff, because it's like, where was this money going? Don't tell me this is $500 million and then I go see it and it looks awful and I can tell that the poor VFX artists were just worked to the bone with impossible timelines that y'all gave them, and so this looks like they only could achieve 75% of what they wanted to do. Like, I think people are starting to reject that. That's no longer like a pull. The pull that it once was. Like, oh my god, I gotta go see this. More often than not, if I hear...
the budget is mismanaged.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. More often than not, when I hear that something is over $500 million, I'm like, okay, why? Where? Why? How? If there's no justification to back it up, I think they're starting to catch on that modern audiences are rejecting that. They're rejecting the same rehashed remakes. You know, I don't want to see Ocean's 11 with an all-female cast. Now listen, I could be talking out my bum right now because I never even did watch that remake that starred an all-female cast. Create a new story that just happens to have a stacked female cast doing badass things. Don't give me, you know, just, again, create new stories. Create new franchises. I know it's hard because we've been so entrenched in, well, we need a built-in audience. We need something that we know is going to sell. We need something that is going to be return on our investment. Which is why, yeah, maybe it's safe to, okay, put out a new Batman movie every few years and recast the role, but that proved to work out well. See, there are instances where
films, the studios are a giant business, giant corporations with thousands and thousands of employees. You got to pay the bills, and what's the safest thing to do? At least what they've in their head is, okay, we're sitting on these pots of gold with these historical stories that people know and love, and if you go in and, okay, we just kind of piggyback off that, then it's a guaranteed baseline of some type of revenue off of that film. But that baseline has certainly been shrinking as it's been more and more saturated.
Yeah, a lot of you guys are saying, don't make me vote in this poll. I saw Charlie say both. Jason Olsen is saying, I can't vote in this poll because I say both animation and live action are better. Yeah, this does not have to be your signed, sealed, delivered final answer for life. I should say, all these polls are, you can take it back anytime you want, just for the sake of putting out a feeler to see. But I'm shocked to see that animation's winning right now. I would not have expected that. Exactly, Ty Sabin. Somebody mentioned it's impossible to make a return on investment if something is, if the budget's $400 million. Aiden, what is up? Good to see you. But yes, it's because going to the movies anymore costs $40. Heck, we gotta sign up for that AMC. I don't know why we haven't. 3 movies a week you can go to?
We see like 3 movies a year.
Because it's like $50. This is LA.
And there's not that much
and
that's worth going to see.
Listen, when I was a kid, it was like, we're not getting popcorn, we're not getting drinks. Eat beforehand and you can wait the 2 minutes, like the 2 hours, you know.
And I'm sorry
we don't
for you.
do that.
I
we
feel
go,
bad for you.
we get the popcorn, we get a slushie, we get a Sprite, we get M&Ms, we get whatever we want. So yeah,
because
that adds
the experience.
up. My
movie theater experience growing up was popcorn, biggest soda you can get, tons of candy. The best ones, you go in the theater and it's got like the candy wall and you just pour it out, fill up your little goodie bag of gummy worms and M&Ms and gummy bears and whatever. You got this fat paper bag full of candy, like 10,000 calories of candy, 2,000 calories of popcorn. You got a cooler Gatorade 20-gallon thing of Coke, and then you go to the checkout line and it's like, I don't know, $300, and then you go watch the movie. That's how
and then 6 weeks later, it's already available for rent on Amazon Prime. So it's like, okay, I just spent
another dynamic
$50 to go see it. Yeah. It's not even going to be in theaters anymore. I'm like, holy shnikes, if I don't go see a movie the week it comes out, I feel like I'm behind and not going to have a chance to go see it. They are going to start, I think theaters, the pushback is real. It works. Pushback works because I think theaters now are actually extending by popular demand, they're extending their run times in terms of, okay, a theatrical release in IMAX. Not everything is immediately going on to DVD, or does anybody even really buy DVD players? Get a DVD player, says Mark. Buy old DVDs and watch some classics from the past. You can play DVDs on the PlayStation, can't you? Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out.
You can, yeah.
And so, SLC88 was asking, we didn't go see Sinners, because we stink. I wanted to go see it, just didn't have the opportunity.
Because it is expensive. So, we realistically, this year's an exception because we saw Revenge of the Sith twice. But usually, it's like 2 movies a year, maybe, is what we go see. 2 to 3, maybe. Because you really, with the pricing, you've got to really pick and choose, like, okay. Yeah, if it's on the edge, it's like, all right, yeah, well, I'll see it on HBO Max or whatever in 6 weeks. So why would we go spend,
I should also add,
$80 at the movie theater?
It's different for us.
We can go see it
because, make of it what you will from a content creation perspective. When something comes in theaters, okay, I was watching the first Gladiator as the second one in theaters. I wanted to go see the second one, but I was like, well, then I can't film a reaction to it. So there's a lot of things that I'm like, okay, Sinners is blowing up. I would love to capture my reaction to this as something that's another element of it as well that I understand is very niche and is not an excuse, but that is what goes through my mind a lot of the time, and why we don't go see things in theaters. It's like, okay, is this better suited to film a reaction to it if I can get it on Amazon Prime shortly, a few weeks later, and it'll still perform relatively okay. So now that said, I do rob myself of a theatrical experience. So don't hate me, y'all, if I go see 28 Years Later on the big screen. I really want to go see it based on the reviews that I'm seeing. We did watch 28 Weeks Later together last night, so I'm sorry. I didn't capture my reaction to that because...
Forgot about that. It was literally last night.
Yeah, there were comments saying... And I try to make my own judgments, but I knew that my emotional investment was probably going to be a little bit diminished because Cillian Murphy wasn't in that one. So I made a judgment call, and I was just like, okay, I just really want to go see 28 Years Later ASAP, so I need to watch this one before I can go do that. So forgive me for not capturing my reaction to that one. But, so yes, that also lends itself into, we have the additional predicament of, should I just wait it out and then go film a reaction to this?
Well, speak for yourself, because I'll just go watch the movie theater.
But you don't either. You don't anyway.
Yeah, because of the pricing, and because listen, if we're gonna go spend close to $100 on 2 tickets in IMAX and drink and popcorn,
$100, that's crazy.
And you gotta get, no, it's not. The tickets alone are like $50 for 2, and then you get popcorn, a soda, maybe a hot dog. I love theater hot dogs. Maybe a bag of candy. Those 4 things, that's like $30. At least if we want to go for the full theater experience, it's at least $80 for the 2 of us to go. So,
which is why we need the AMC A-list stubs.
Which is why we go 2 or 3 times a year when there's a movie where it's like, okay, that we need to be sat in that theater, big old popcorn, big old soda, candy, maybe some hot dogs or some pretzel bites.
Yeah, that's why it's $1,000. We can go and the number keeps growing. We're like, it costs $50 to go to the movies anymore. It costs $100.
I'm not going and getting a bottle of wine and surf and turf. Maybe $300.
All I'm saying is we might have to bring back the OG days, how I was raised. You go to the movies bare bones because you're not paying $20 for a water bottle.
It's like, that's part of the experience. So that's why if there's a movie like Revenge of the Sith, saw it twice, I will pay. It's worth it for it's an experience and a story that you think is worth it.
Point is though.
So
pushback.
I'm very selective. Very selective.
Pushback works, as we have seen. Audiences are rejecting the same old, same old. We just want, give us a new IP, give us new anything. And so we're seeing the success of something like Sinners is proof that yes, even in this economy, in this market where it costs, it's no longer just I got a ticket for 5 cents to go to the movies. It's no longer just how it used to be in the good old days, y'all. Back in the day, take me back to before I even existed, when a movie theater ticket was practically free. It is proof, though. Something, again, like the success of something like Sinners is proving that even in this economy, it can still flourish and thrive if it's a good enough film. And it also proven that word of mouth, the best marketing anymore, I feel like, is Twitter, is social media, because that's where I see the hype. That's where I spend 90% of my time. Frankly, yeah, I guess we don't really see commercials or anything because we don't have cable. I think a lot of people don't even have cable anymore, so I'm not just seeing TV trailers. Yes, I don't have YouTube Premium, so I suck it up and get ads. So I occasionally learn about new films from a YouTube ad.
Social media
but
marketing
it is like all Twitter. Yeah,
that's the modern era. You create a good product, it is so easier. The word of mouth. You don't have to. You can rely on word of mouth so much more. And if you're a studio and you put some product out, if it's good, people are going to talk about it, and it's going to spread like wildfire, and it's going to bring in the revenue.
Well, and SLC makes another good point.
If you have your own business and you have talents that you want to share with the world and try and monetize,
like stop art, perhaps, Jesus!
You can market
SLC
and you can
makes another good point.
Is so powerful in the modern era.
Another point is, yes, anymore it's also people have allegiances to a successful director like Ryan Coogler. Yes, listen, I know you're shading us for not going to see the movie. I'm freaking sorry. Listen, it's because we freaking were slacking. And
what, seeing Sinners?
Yes. Oh. But there is a larger point to that as well. It's like, okay, if there's an established director, if Christopher Nolan's got something coming out, everybody's gonna go freaking see it. It's like people have, where the quality lies now. Okay, this is Ryan Coogler, it's gonna cook. It's Christopher Nolan, it's gonna cook. Like, that's, I think also...
It's The Rock, it's gonna cook. Speaking of interest in live action.
No, Jesus. All right. Well.
It would work.
Anyways.
They're both bold.
Mark says streaming is ruining modern content. They don't need to make something good. They just... Where did it go? Oh, they just have to have enough exclusive content to drag you into a sub. Exactly, Mark. The Netflix just brain rotting, if you will, of just having shows on for the background. There's this whole kind of underground movement now of, you hear these rumors that shows are allegedly being developed and written, designed for people who watch and multitask at the same time. Yeah. So that's why scripts are becoming, dialogue is becoming insufferable and unbearable. It's because you have writers being told to write in a way that your viewer can be looking away from the camera and still understand what's going on. If they're scrolling on TikTok or like doing dinner in the background, that's what's honestly like, streaming is hurting actual production in more ways than one. It is literally now infringing upon the actual creative processes, the foundation of how writers are being taught to write now. It's because we can't, our pea-sized brains cannot even focus on one thing. This is so evolved into a much larger conversation, by the way, than just animation versus live action. But that's why
but it's a different medium.
There's nuances.
Social media is a totally different medium. And you're saying there's stories that are told in social media. I mean, we are literally sitting in this room talking to a computer and a microphone, and people are watching from all over the world. And watching live right now, watching in the future, if people are catching the rewatch. And we're just whoever we are with the camera and a mic, and click the button on the computer and say, okay, go, and then stream it live. And it's like the avenues of entertainment are, and live action entertainment are larger and more accessible than they ever have been. And so, yeah, when there's so much out there, and social media scrolling and attention spans depleting, it totally does change the way that, hey, if you're trying to just maximize that and ride on that, you're going to get a much different product. I don't know if any of you have watched a Mr. Beast video recently, but you and I like clicked on one for some reason, and that is like the most overstimulating, like borderline nauseating content out there. I mean, it's just like cut, explosion, cut, text over here, zoom
That's
over
the
here.
problem, though.
It's just like bang, bang, bang,
The
bang, bang, bang,
problem,
bang, bang,
though,
bang, 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 bang,
is
bang, bang.
what's
You're sitting there watching it like, whoa.
The age demographic, that's what young brains can take. The age demographic of kids, that's, I'm going to say predominantly his audience, his fan base is probably what, 8 to 15 years old, I'm going to guess. That's what their minds are molded. That is what's happened. And I'm seeing y'all concur. Ty Saban, I saw you say that you do it too, and I was going to say don't feel bad, because I do it as well, but not even, it's almost like an involuntary muscle spasm reflex of if I'm sitting idle for too long, my hand jerks to my phone. And I'm like, what am I doing? I actually like this show. I don't ever put on anything for just, like, I never would put on a movie or a TV show that I actually want to watch and be invested in and just mindlessly put it on in the background. It's like, how am I going to know what's happening? That's why it's like, you have the Netflix formula now of how shows are being directed to be written so that viewers, you're not missing anything important, and you can still follow along and have a pretty coherent understanding of the plot if you're scrolling on TikTok the whole time you're watching. A show like Andor, forget about that. Because there were times I'm stone cold focused, locked in as a reactor, especially trying to make sure that I clock as much as I possibly can so I can have some commentary about it. And even with a show like Andor, you still don't pick up on everything, even if you are as locked in as possible. And that's because the script is infused with so much subtext. You know, everything is written between the lines and with the actors' performances. So there's one thing I will say. I do not think Andor would have been better in animation. Andor is so character driven. The performances, like, there's one thing I will actually say. This has come full circle because, and
that's because it's a
and
completely,
the quality.
They absolutely maximized the profit and the budget for that product. So yeah, if you have live action and you've got a killer story and you take the riskier path of investing all of that into live action and going full throttle, and you totally maximize the budget towards that, you're going to reach that conclusion, which you're totally right. You are absolutely right, because they knocked it out of the park. And it is a true tip of the iceberg of top of the mountain, peak of the totem pole of live action serial television experience. Which, speaking of Andor, I saw something that Andor was like in like 7th or 8th place of like best TV show of the year or something.
The like Emmys will be telling.
I saw something like that, and there was some other shows that are higher on that list, and I'm like, how is that even?
Is that from Nielsen ratings?
I have no idea.
I used to be a Nielsen
when
household.
I was mindlessly scrolling a little bit the other day.
Did I ever tell you that? I used to be a Nielsen, like, whenever I see Nielsen ratings, I'm like, throwback.
What's Nielsen?
It gauges like what the average American is watching, and my family did that one time, where you have to go in,
take a poll.
We were part of like Nielsen Family TV ratings, where they install this little console next to your TV, and so there's a button for each person in your family. So every time I would go to watch, it had my presets. It knew that I was like a 10-year-old girl, and so I'd have to press the button and say, okay, I'm logging in to go watch TV. And so that's how it registers, like, okay, this is the most popular show amongst 10-year-old girls across America who are doing Nielsen ratings. It was forever ago. Yes.
Does anybody know what she's talking about?
I don't know if it's changed.
I literally have
What's Nielsen? It's like the TV rating. It's how they rate. You've heard of Nielsen ratings. I don't think it's as popular
I have no idea
now.
what you're talking about.
Okay, it was forever ago though. That's all I'm saying.
You had it. You're telling me that you had a box next to your TV in your parents' living room, and you would go up to said box and push a button saying that you're watching TV, and then you would watch TV.
Yeah.
And it's just recording all that data.
Yes, Mark knows.
The company
Mark knows what I'm talking about. Yes, it's just how they clock, like, what shows are most popular. I'll go right now and try to find Danny. What's up?
Danny!
Real quick before I divulge and we end on Nielsen family ratings. Yes, Nielsen ratings, they're obsolete now. Yeah, this was decades ago, y'all. Thank you so much, Danny. I hope everyone is doing well. Just tuned in, so very sorry if you already covered this. But with regards to Star Wars, I think animated Star Wars can tell much more timeless Star Wars stories than live action films in 2025. Danny, you could be on to something. I haven't considered an animated film for Star Wars. And listen, I will say, you make a good point, Danny. And honestly, perhaps something I've seen that sparked this idea for tonight's topic. Every so often on Twitter, I see people tweet out the Old Republic cinematics. And they all agree, like, I would watch something in this animated style. Now, yes, those cinematics are, like, absolutely crazy. Probably takes forever for them to even just compose of, like, 3 minutes worth of footage. It's like it looks practically real. It's honestly like video game cutscene quality. But I think, yeah, if you get an animation style that, heck, honestly, I feel like if they were to, this might be a hot statement, bold, but if they were to announce, hey, we're going to have an Old Republic film and it's going to be in the style of the animations, I don't know. Let me know, folks, because Old Republic content is one of the most highly demanded things in the Star Wars fan base right now. Would that make or break it if they said we're going to keep it consistent with these animations that pop off? Whenever they drop one, it immediately gets like millions of views. I don't know, because again, I still feel like there are so many things that you can...
It's copping out. Give them full throttle. Get the team together. Go all in on a true, masterful, live-action, Star Wars, theatrical, cinematic, Old Republic experience. No animation. Get a killer story. Give the VFX team and the choreography team and the stunt team and the composer all of the appropriate resources they need to create an absolutely killer, gorgeous, beautiful, dramatic, well-written, Old Republic 2.5 hour theatrical mega experience.
All of the training in the world, all of the budget in the world, all of the pre-production preparation and development in the world. You might never be able to get a human being to move the way that you can get animated characters to move.
Sure, that's true, but you can get pretty close.
But all I'm saying is that style of the Old Republic cinematic animation is pretty close to live action.
You've got Green Frog and old 100-year-old flipping around on flying saucers, and it looks totally real.
Ooh, Arcane. I need to freaking watch that show too, y'all. That's on my list. What would if I were to do something next? I need to pick my next animated project that I'm gonna watch after I finish Legend of Korra, which I'm gonna sit down and film this week, y'all, tomorrow. After we have Chop's stream here, we react to Chop's latest edit. What would y'all rather see first, Arcane or Invincible? Animation is the future. I like that, Emery's. But one of you guys also made a good point. There's a difference between
Happy
like
Gilmore 2.
Clone Wars.
When does that come out? That comes out soon, right?
July.
Is it already out?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
Mark makes a good point, but you know that animation is contrived and the actor is feeling it for real. Yes, and that's why I say a show like Andor could never be animated. Okay, Arcane is immediately getting the... Listen, I've seen so many great things about that show, so I was like, I have to save this to watch on the channel. The prequels team are so far ahead of their time with the VFX and choreography.
Listen,
yeah,
you can do it. You just have to be... You have to be, like you were saying, reshoots. Like, you have to have it so well planned out that when it comes to shoot and execute, you are on it. And you are keeping the schedule, and you are in, and you are out, and you are getting what you need. Animation, you can say, you can wake up one day, okay, we blended this, we put this animation together. You come in the next day, I don't really like it, I'm going to change it, I'm going to do this, I'm going to add this move. Oh, I had this great idea 2 weeks later of how we could change the fight. Oh yeah, we're going to go in and change it. You can't do that in live action. It's all, you need to have it choreographed, mapped out. You iterate it in the beginning, but then once it's locked in, it's locked in. If you can make a change the day of on set to do it, great. But if not, nope, too bad. Sorry, you're stuck with what you got. So the planning and the pre-production for a live action project, that's crucial. But if you nail it, then you get
Did you
incredible
wear that shirt
choreographed.
tactically? You've referred to it quite a lot of
I have
times.
many methods to getting my points across.
I think Sean says it perfectly, though. There are benefits and flaws to both.
Yeah. And in either medium, you can have a great story, but the execution might not be there, or you can have a not so great story that looks really good. It can happen in both mediums.
That is true too. Well, our poll concluded shockingly. I really thought that live action was going to win out, but
everybody's perspective is tainted.
Well, we all like similar
things.
We all like, we all, I think, are of a similar demographic here. We're all watching, Star Wars or Avatar, shows, nerdy things, if you will. We're all in this together, y'all. That are more infused with fantastical or science fiction elements and mystical, that just visually looks better. And unfortunately, I think we're still in the beginning of the wave is coming for hopefully cheaper theater tickets, new IP, less remakes, new stories, less formulated, just kind of formulaic blockbuster, safe, Hollywood releases. But unfortunately, I think the other tidal wave that we're still on the cusp of is animated to live action remakes, which I think is getting jumbled in with the video game to live action pipeline, which I think is very much still in a fledgling state. Yeah. But I think this is still, I think like what we're seeing with the live action Netflix Avatar: The Last Airbender is the initial launch.
Well done.
I couldn't help it. Oh my god. Okay. Well, on that note, launch that like button, y'all.
Yeah. Video games might be the answer. Listen, we didn't even talk. We talked about Jedi series and Last of Us, two killer stories in the video game format. The Horizon series, if anyone's played the Horizon series, incredible story in video game format. There's so many. There are so many stories that exist only in video games that, again, it's a different medium, but the stories hit you like a million bricks. Dropping from...
Yeah.
Anyway, it's... The medium, ultimately, like Matt said in the beginning, you start with a great story, whether it's book or audiobook or video game or live action show or animated show.
Lord Insidious.
If you have a great story, it's a great story.
I feel like Lord Insidious is the only one who clocked mine. Harrowing launch. Anyway, bye Alice. Thank you so much for being here. We're probably going to log off soon enough. And shout out, found this channel because of your 28 Days Later reaction.
Let's go.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking around. I appreciate it.
Al Bugatti. You have a Bugatti? That'd be sick.
But yes, many thanks to everybody for being here this evening. This turned into a much larger conversation about so many other prevalent topics in this day and age of trying to enjoy modern cinema for less than $30 per movie ticket. Now listen, y'all, I know if we've been out here with those prices. That's what we are used to in LA, where everything is overpriced. It might be very different. I know also support local theaters, which is something, frankly, that I would like to do more often. Just go to smaller, old-fashioned theaters that have been in the game since like the 60s or whatever. And that usually more often than not just show reruns and whatnot. That I'm sure is cheaper as well. Shout out, Mark. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Thanks for the avocado.
Yeah, Mark always just sends these cute little stickers. I love them.
Pear avocado, whichever it is. Much appreciated.
Tambourine's Music Machine. I love the way that rhymes. I agree. The Netflix Avatar just doesn't hold a candle to the animated version, but I'm gonna go into season 2 with an open mind.
Yeah, when's that?
But I think
do we know when that comes out?
I think it's gonna be filming shortly, actually, if it hasn't already started. Mm-hmm. But Move to Podunk, Oklahoma for better movie prices. Yeah, probably better everything prices as well.
There we go.
Surely. But yes. Go Temple, go Nittany Lions. Oh, shout out. Shout out, Daddy Josh. Yes.
I was gonna say I'm not wearing,
represent our alma mater.
I'm not wearing that Nittany merch. But
see you tomorrow, Daddy
go.
Josh.
There we go.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Yes. Shout out. Go U.S. men's national team. Pray for us, y'all.
Yep.
I roasted them live on a paint stream recently, and then they've seemingly got their act together since. So
3-game
maybe
win streak.
roasting works. Pushback works.
Gold Cup quarterfinals on Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Lock in.
So it's big. U.S. Costa Rica.
On that final note that has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the topics that we covered tonight, thank you guys so very much for joining us. Glad to have our co-pilot back. Thank you all for hanging out. Once again, do not forget to tune in tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to have a little live reaction to Chopper's edit, which if you have not subscribed to Chopper, definitely go and check them out. Get ahead of the game before they launch their newest edit on the channel here tomorrow. Their channel is linked in one of my latest few community posts. Go watch my cat cooks video where I absolutely wreaked havoc on my blender, my oven, my stomach. Not actually though. I was pleased to report that I didn't induce any self-imposed stomach aches because of what we ate. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. Until then, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, night, morning, evening, 3 a.m., wherever you may be. Thank you so very much for hanging out. Happy Dork Discourse Tuesday. Hope you have a great rest of your week.
Yep.
And we will see you guys again very, very soon.
Yes. Great discussion, as always, folks.
Bye, friend.
Have a good one. Catch you next time. Avatar on.